Yes, Mr. Rollins, please. Please have a seat. Thank you. I wanted to speak with you about what you said at the end of our last session. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, no, that's not what I wanted to speak with you about, Mr. Rollins. The truth is, I wanted to speak with you about, well, the night that you were arrested from your home. Yes. Well, there are certain things that I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding, Mr. Rollins. Perhaps you could clear them up for me? Mm-hmm. 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 Well, the main thing is, when you were arrested, your son had a badly broken nose and was bleeding quite profusely. Now, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mr. Rollins, I'm going to stop you right there. I understand that you had numerous other injuries yourself. You claim that a cast iron pan was flung at your head, as well as several of the knives in the butcher block. Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Rollins, is it your claim that your wife threw these items at you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it is not. I see. I see. So, Mr. Rollins, help me to understand who threw those items at you. Mm-hmm. Oh, it wasn't your son. Well, that makes sense. I've actually examined that cast iron pan, and yes, it would be far too difficult for your 6-year-old son to even lift up off the counter, even if he used two hands. Yes, those traditional cast iron pans are rather heavy. Yes, yes. Mr. Rollins, did your injuries take place before or after you struck your son in the face, breaking his nose? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Rollins, I didn't ask you about your reason for punching your 6-year-old son in the face as hard as you could, breaking his nose, splattering his blood all over the place. Now, I didn't ask you for your, shall we say, reason for doing so. Well, no, Mr. Rollins, obviously a 6-year-old is not going to be able to defend himself against a grown man, especially not someone such as yourself. Well, I understand that, Mr. Rollins, but, keep in mind he is a child, and if a child sees an adult place some candy in an out-of-the-way spot, well, that child is going to want that candy. And if the child knows that he's not going to get permission, well, he's going to pull up a chair, climb up there, and try to get some candy for himself. After all, he's a child, and children love candy. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I understand that all of those pieces of candy were not individually wrapped, not at all. And they hit the dirty floor, and of course you got upset. Any parent would get upset. Well, in fairness, Mr. Rollins, not any parent would violently lash out at their child. But we're not here to talk about your particular reason for doing so. Well, yes, Mr. Rollins, I am a court-appointed psychiatrist. And my report will have a great deal of bearing on your case. Well, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Rollins, but you don't get to ask for a different psychiatrist. It doesn't work that way. Well, here's the thing, Mr. Rollins. Obviously, you can speak with your attorney, and your attorney can petition the court for a different psychiatrist. But because this is a rather small town, it's not like there's a huge selection. Basically, I'm pretty much it. Yes. Well, there are a couple of psychologists in town, but I'm the only psychiatrist. What's the difference? I'm actually a medical doctor, and I can prescribe prescription drugs to help patients with their psychiatric issues. A psychologist is, well, basically they're like a overglorified counselor for adults. Maybe that's not entirely fair, but the fact remains that, oh, there goes that darn generator again. There we go. Mr. Rollins, you seem to have turned very pale. Why is that? Oh, you don't think that was just a generator issue? Well, what else could it be, Mr. Rollins? The ghost. The ghost. Okay. Well, to address your earlier question, being the only psychiatrist here in this small town, it would take a very long time to find another psychiatrist, and they would have to be willing to step in and take the case for the state, which means until that happens, you would continue to stay in this mental asylum. Oh, yes, Mr. Rollins, yes, that's exactly what it means. So you can either have me, or you can wait around for realistically, let's see, how long was it since the last individual asked for a different state-appointed psychiatrist to examine him? I think that was 3 years ago, and, well, without compromising confidentiality, that individual, it took 9 months to find another psychiatrist willing to come in and do the job. Oh, yes, Mr. Rollins, 9 months. Oh, you would like that psychiatrist? Well, unfortunately, Mr. Edwards passed away last year. Well, The man was in his early 90s, Mr. Rollins. Quite frankly, it's amazing that he was still practicing. Yes, he died of old age. So now we're going to have to start the process all over again. Would you like that? No? Well, yes, you would have to stay here until we found a new one. So you would not like to do that. Okay, no problem. Now, getting back to this ghost business, you believe there's a ghost in this room? Just because the lights switched off and the emergency generator kicked in? Mr. Rollins, seriously. Okay, Mr. Rollins, okay. Oh, and you know the name of the ghost. Well, why don't you tell me, Mr. Rollins? Madeline Weber. I see. Now, is that a Miss Weber, Mrs. Weber, or maybe Ms. Weber? Mrs. Weber. Oh, okay, okay. And who is Mrs. Weber to you, Mr. Rollins? Oh, I see. The ghost. Could you expand on that? Mm-hmm. 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 No, I'm listening. Please go on. Mm-hmm. 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 I see. So, Mrs. Weber is a young woman who moved into the house that you, your wife, and your son used to occupy. She moved in the early 1980s with her brand new husband, and they were very eager to get started on a family. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And apparently, young Mrs. Weber caught an individual, a neighbor, horribly abusing a child, and she stepped in. Because she did, she stopped the abuse, but she was, I see. Well, that explains how she would become a ghost. Very tragic. Mm-hmm. 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 Mr. Rollins, you're claiming that this young woman who never had a chance to have children haunts the house. Oh, not just the house, the neighborhood. And whenever she catches a parent abusing a child, she reacts with horrific violence. Well, that, I suppose, would explain the cast iron pan that was thrown at your head, along with the knives and the butcher block that came flying at you. Yes, I do believe you were very fortunate to avoid all of them, except for the paring knife that landed in your leg. Yes. Now, Mr. Rollins, are you sure it wasn't a case of your wife perhaps throwing that cast iron pan at your head and then grabbing the nearest knife and stabbing you in the leg. Well, look at it from my point of view, Mr. Rollins. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Oh, no. I'm not calling you a liar. I absolutely believe that you believe everything you're telling me. Well, Mr. Rollins, keep in mind I live in that neighborhood. I've seen more than a few cases of abuse. And, well, to be honest, every single time it turned out to be either a child trying to fight back desperately or a spouse deciding they've had enough. Oh, I see, your wife is well trained. Well, not really sure how to respond to that, Mr. Rollins. So you're still claiming that this ghost, Mrs. Weber, is the one who attacked you? Yes, I did notice the complaint you filed. Apparently, Mrs. Weber is haunting your dreams and brutally torturing you. And you woke up one night bleeding from the head, and you're upset because the staff did nothing about it. Yes, I see. I could see how that would be upsetting. But Mr. Rollins, according to the staff members on duty that night, you rolled out of bed and hit your head on the floor, and that's why you were bleeding. Oh, it's not. It's because the ghost or specter, Mrs. Weber, attacked you. I see. Well, Mr. Rollins, there's still some more things we need to work out. Unfortunately, I need to see other patients before my shift is over. Oh, yes, I have other patients. Now, Mr. Rollins, I need you to calm down. Calm down. Yes. Well, the orderlies know when to come in, and they're on their way. Ah, and there they are. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Rollins back to his room. Thank you. No, Mr. Rollins, we will speak again. Mr. Rollins, I would suggest cooperating. After all, you don't want the syringe again, do you? That's better, Mr. Rollins. We'll talk again soon. Yes. Orderlies, please close the door on your way out. I'd like to be alone for a while. Thank you. You know, it's funny, Mrs. Weber. I had no clue that was your first name. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. I like a bit of formality. I will continue to call you Mrs. Weber. As for Mr. Rollins, yes, I don't think he suffered enough for what he did to his son. I'm sure you'll do a very good job of taking care of that tonight. Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Weber.